while we were doing all of that back and forth, usually with other staff in the organization, because my Hindi is quite low, I actually observed something that was remarkable for me. Nobody else had visited them post-restoration. They'd never seen anyone else. And they were so excited that somebody had made the effort to come and talk to them about how they were doing. So she and the kids were super excited. They were drawing and playing and engaging with us and didn't want us to leave. And she said, you know, it would really help us if we had a bathroom. That would just really help us a lot. Even just a community bathroom. Because we work so long and the kids are here playing. And they do go to school, but life is so much harder without a bathroom when we have to do open defecation. And I thought, wow, that's a simple request. It's a reasonable request. I can't imagine living without a bathroom. So I did try to follow up on that, and they do have programs to build and funds in Ranchi. So there is a program there is a scheme there are funds there to build community bathrooms, but it's not happening. Why not? Why does this community not happen? So I'll continue on the story, but I did reach out to the mayor and try to find out and try to, but that's kind of where they go when they need to go. Getting a little closer to home. So the organization, I stayed in the office. The organization heads lived above with their kids, and so there was another extra room, and I lived also on site. And something that for me was remarkable was when I was there, they introduced Pooja to me as their daughter. And then slowly I got to know that she was not actually their daughter. And Pooja, by the way, would get up at 5 in the morning, would cook 6, 7 people, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, clean everything, top to bottom, hand wash everyone's clothes. So she was working all day, morning to night, okay? And going to school as well. She's behind 2 grades. It seemed that she had been rescued from trafficking in Delhi. She was working as a domestic help in Delhi, and they rescued her. Weren't able to reunite her with her parents. She just didn't recognize them. She had been taken when she was so young, and she'd been doing domestic work for so long that she didn't know who her, when her parents said, it's us, she said, I don't want to go with you to a village. I've lived in a city and don't know who you are. It took me a long time to build trust with Pooja. She had been trafficked in a traffic situation for well over 3 years, 4 years. She's smiling here, and you have no idea how hard I had to work to get her to smile. It took me multiple months, 2 to 3 months to get her to smile. And I was struck by the fact that here she is making me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, along with everyone else, and I don't feel like it's appropriate. Is she not in the same situation as what she was before? Right. So, think about those things. I'm really running out of time. I'll try to be more concise. And finally, the other thing I did while I was doing all this is, in the area I lived in, which was mainly middle class, where do you think the workers and the household help and everybody lives? Right next door, right? In the next community, just less developed. Who are they? They are the Munda tribe. So you see upper caste, non-tribal, and who are the workers? They're the tribal. Right? So I started to get to know who cleaned the office, who came in to cook, things like that, staff members. And then I decided I wanted to get to know the Munda community right next door a little bit more, because I don't know very much about Indian tribal communities. So I started to go there and offer the one thing I could. I'll teach you English, and you teach me about you. You help me understand how you live, where you live, what you show us. So we did that every Sunday, and started off with the girls were super excited, the boys didn't want to, and then slowly, the boys started to join too. Let me give you, I'm getting to the end. Let me give you a little bit of, so this is the organization when I was there. Number of things that I learned from my experience. So first,
stay away from the speaker.
am I right? That way? Is that way? This is good?
No, they're the same one. Yeah.
Okay. This is the organizational head, Sita Swansea, and Varna, the second in command, if you will. The others are staff members, and what was really interesting to me is a lot of these issues that we discussed were really clearly prevalent here, right? Sita herself is tribal, got married when she was 15, grew up in a village where she did get up and have to cook and clean all day long for her entire family. So when I engaged with her about what Pooja was doing for her, she said, this is what we do. I'm teaching her on how to survive in the future. She will have to, if she gets married, which she probably will, right? Cook and clean and take care of the household. She needs these skills. I'm teaching her life skills, right? Because my mother did that to me. So we have to understand some of these things are not as simplistic and easy like I initially, for me it was initially, that's child abuse. And it is and it isn't. And we have to really understand the nuance involved here of someone who has gone through that, many people who still do these things, and also the internalization of some of these things. Sita, for example, is a very authoritarian leader. And she would be really, in my opinion, from my Western experience, as someone who grew up in the US, very abusive towards the staff. There'd be lots of yelling, there'd be lots of name calling, so with Vaidnath, demoralizing language, nothing that smacked of empowerment, right? And I tried to engage with all these things. Like, what does that mean? Why are you, these are your staff, they're really new. Can we train them to do this, this, and this? And that way, you don't have to do everything. They can do some of these things. And slowly, I started to understand more of the nuance of what having an organization in India, at least in Ranchi, was like, and what the context was. So there, she said, we can't pay very much. Now, if I train them and give them all the skills they need, they're going to leave and get a better job. And then, where will I be? It's really hard for me to find staff. And how do I keep them? And these three, so Alankita, Rashmi, and Siddiqui, they just graduated with a master's degree in rural development from Ranchi University. Intelligent, but I'm about to graduate with a master's degree in social work, and they were coming to me for basic things like how to write a business letter, how to send an email, what is documentation, how do you write, even let's not talk about reports. So it was really interesting also, skill sets are completely different estimation, even if you have the same degree, if you will, right? So I could begin to understand some of those nuances. Let's talk a greater level in Ranchi, in trafficking. There are many organizations that work there, but what happens with tribals, a lot of tribals, was that there's a divide. They're the Christians, and they're the Hindus. You either become Hindu tribal or Christian tribal. And that's where the powers that be are, right? So to have an organization that's headed by a tribal woman in Ranchi was like this huge thing. She had to be really, really careful how she did what she did because she was small fish in a small pond with a lot of shark, right? So that's something that I slowly began to understand, right? So some of my questions were, what are our expectations when we work with partners? See, sometimes we're lucky to work with someone who's been in the field for 25, 30 years, has built up all the leadership skills and capacities, along with like the counseling skills and capacities, along with knowing how things work, how to implement some of these things. And we learn a great deal from them. But what about the others who are not like that? Do we write them off, or what do we do? How do we engage with organizations or leaders? They're not necessarily corrupt, but they have a lot to learn because they are in a system, in a society that reinforces all of these things, right? So these are some of my questions. That there's a lot of, so especially in the field of trafficking in Ranchi, I found that there's a lot of cynicism and corruption, right? So there's a lot of, some of the other organizations that were more powerful got more money and less, people were checking less on how well they were doing some of the work and things like that. There were a lot of questions, but because of their political connections, they had the power. So anyway, these are questions for us as AID. When we talk about leadership and we talk about organizations in the field, can we just take the cream of the crop and go with them? And what are we defining when we're talking about counseling skills? What do we, if it's not even available in training programs in India? Are expectations appropriate to what is available in reality in India, right? And how can we support them with whatever we have access to, such that we're working together instead of blackballing, for example, right? Because I wouldn't necessarily blackball, but I wouldn't necessarily say we're all in either, right? So at the time when I left, Bhaiknath is no longer with the organization. Neither is Rashmi, Siddiqui, or Alantrita. Again, high turnover. What does that mean?
Do you know where they went?
So the two heads, they had a huge conflict that started towards the end of now there. The others, so I think like Siddiqui, for example, wanted to get paid more but didn't have the skill set. He got a job in another organization. The girls, and that was also, I mean, I'm happy to talk to you more. Time is like at a premium now, but it was very also interesting how gendered the society is and how that comes up in terms of employment of women or men, young women or men, and those nuances that are involved in that. So anyway, so they were all looking to get married. It was true, so I'm not sure.
So what I'm thinking is,